Okay, I believe we were live for this week's training for restaurant owners on the accounting and finance control over your restaurant. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we will bring over this week's presentation. All right. Okay, big topic this week. Stop the bleeding labor cost, a strategy for profits and service insanity. This is probably the hardest area of your restaurant to implement cost controls. Controlling labor cost is complex. It takes time. It takes a lot of work, and it can be slow improvement over time. But if you pull it off, and let's say your labor costs are at 37% and you can get them down to 32%, that's 5% savings. If you're a small restaurant doing $1 million to $1.5 million in annual revenue, 5% of that makes a huge impact on your bottom line and your cash flow. So this is a comprehensive approach to transforming your restaurant's labor model from a cost center to a profit driver. Like we said, if you reduce your labor costs, it drives profit, and it can drive profit in many other ways, which we're going to get into, while maintaining exceptional service, which drives profit, and operational sanity for you and your team. So this is part one of a two-part presentation. This is the conceptual foundation. We're going to talk a lot about controlling labor in the conceptual format. And then next week, we're going to get into the technical, more practical approach. And I'm going to show you some workbooks, some spreadsheets, and some things to start tracking in your restaurant to start to implement some of these ideas. So we'll explore how to develop a labor budget that balances profitability with operational excellence and employee satisfaction. You'll learn the practical, strategic approach to optimizing your labor costs without sacrificing quality and morale. Okay, most restaurant owners think their labor is just a cost to be controlled, but what if I told you it's actually your greatest profit lever? We're going to explore today the ideal labor budget, what it really means, and how rethinking your approach to staffing can transform your restaurant's profitability, service quality, and operational flow. It kind of comes, like I said, this is one of the most difficult areas in your restaurant to control cost and control expenses. However, if we go back to the old Vince Lombardi line, perfection is not attainable. But if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. That's what we're trying to do here. You will never have the perfect ideal labor budget, but we're chasing that perfection so you can gradually improve over time and pull the lever on bottom line profit improvement and cash flow improvement. Okay, rethinking the ideal labor. Ideal is not cheapest. It's not about cutting hours to the bone. It's about extracting the most value from every labor hour that you schedule and pay for. Once your team is inside your restaurant, that's a sunk cost. You're paying for their time. Every hour that you can get the most value from that time, them being in your restaurant, is how you achieve an ideal labor budget. The true definition is not the fewest hours that can produce the best guest experience. It is the fewest hours that can produce the best guest experience while maintaining staff satisfaction and operational efficiency. It goes beyond price. It's beyond price increases. If your current labor model can't hit profit goals, raising prices is one option, but it's not the only option and probably not the best option. You can't continue to raise prices without there being some kickback from your customer base. So you want to focus first on increasing productivity within your existing model. And we're also here to fix your sanity. A broken labor system drains profits and creates stress. A strategic approach restores both financial health and operational peace of mind for both you and your team. The real goal of an ideal labor budget is to maximize productivity, eliminate waste while optimizing output, meet key criteria, must be achievable, realistic, and profitable. It has to be realistic with your team and achievable with your team. And then it also has to drive profit to your bottom line. And you're going to prioritize quality. Fast service means nothing if it's incorrect or disappointing to your customers. An effective labor budget isn't just about saving money, it's about strategic allocation of your most valuable resource to generate maximum returns. It's a balancing act. It starts with the guest experience. Speed, service of quality, and consistency are non-negotiable elements that directly impact revenue and reputation. You got to have appropriate wait times, attentive service, and constant food quality. You all know that's how you build your guest experience, and it's a difficult task to get to that point. Remember, perfection is not achievable, but chasing perfection leads to excellence. It's about your employees' experience, your team's experience. Staff satisfaction drives retention and performance. It requires reasonable expectations and fair workloads, manageable shifts, clear expectations amongst your entire team, and proper training. Both of those two things, guest experience, employee experience, drives a profit outcome. Financial health ensures sustainability and growth for your restaurant. It requires disciplined labor management, controllable labor cost, optimized scheduling, and productivity metrics. We're going to, in part 2, we're going to get into those productivity metrics, how to measure them and how to track them and what to do with them. So every labor decision must balance these 3 critical factors. Sacrificing in any one area creates unsustainable operations. All right, recognizing and eliminating labor waste. These are the keys to transforming your labor. Defects, refires, and mistakes that require additional labor to correct. Each error doubles the labor cost on that particular item. Overproduction, making too much food just in case leads to waste, increased prep time, and higher food costs. This goes back to the inventory control and food cost controls that we talked about 2 training sessions ago. You have to have an inventory system in place, and you have to have some of the other tools that we talked about, the waste management tool and the key item tracker, to understand where your inventory levels need to be on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis so you're reducing waste. And when you prep too much food, not only does that create waste, you're increasing prep time and you're increasing your higher food cost. Waiting, ideal time in the kitchen or front of house when staff aren't actively producing. Idle time, I said ideal. Idle time in your kitchen and front of house when your staff aren't actively producing. Non-utilized talents, high-paid chefs doing low-skill tasks that they could delegate to a less expensive staff. And we're going to look at that in more detail in just a minute. Transportation, unnecessary movement of product or staff due to poor kitchen layout or poor front of house layout. Inventory, emergency store runs, improper ordering, creating wasted labor hours and disruption. There's the inventory issue we talked about already. Motion, inefficient station setups causing extra steps that compound over time into significant labor waste. Making sure your executive chef has a say over how the kitchen is laid out, and making sure your front of house is laid out perfectly for your staff. Making items from scratch that don't improve quality or justify additional labor investment. And we'll talk about that again in just a second as well. The 4 core labor categories: setup, prep, service, and cleanup. I'm going to actually bring in, this isn't as pretty, but I'm going to bring in a more detailed outline so that we can go over this and cover all the things involved here. Here are your for hourly employees and even non-hourly employees. These are the most tasks can be categorized into 4 basic activities: setup, organization, utensils stored correctly, supplies organized, and stations stocked to get you through each shift. Prep, you want to benchmark and create time expectations on your food prep. Can you automate, delegate, or eliminate? Shelf life of batches, prep batches the least number of times. You have to understand what the shelf life is. So when you're prepping batches, you're doing the least number, so you're eliminating waste. Reassigned prep to off-peak times, since they're there anyway. Utilize off-peak times to get prep set up for the peak hours. Automate with equipment if that's possible. Equipment is becoming more and more geared towards automating the kitchen processes. When and by whom should prep be done? How long to complete a batch? What's the ideal time to complete it? Who does it faster? Can a lower wage person do it and end up with a lower cost? And I'm going to pull in what we call the prep cost calculator. A lot of detail here. Okay, so this is one simple example: honey mustard dressing. The batch recipe cost should be about $53. It's all the details are up here, but you test it. You go through and itemize how long in hours each of these people on your staff take to prepare one batch, and you track it. Then you drop in their hourly rate to decide what is the batch labor cost that is the most efficient use of your time, your team's time, and your higher level team's time as well. Now, if you just look at time, Laura does it the quickest, 1.1 hours. So you might think that that's the cheapest way to get this done, but it's not, because her hourly rate is higher than anybody else. If you look at Olivia's hourly rate, she can get it done in 1.3 hours. 1.3 hours. The total cost for Olivia to create this batch is $12.35 because her hourly rate is lower. And you're not utilizing your executive chef or your head chef's time and energy to prepare a batch that Olivia could handle, when it actually does get you a cheaper batch cost. So it takes detail tracking, it takes time to go through and analyze all these things, and that's just one batch, one prep item. Okay, let's keep going through these core service areas. So service being the next, seating of guests, order, all these things have to be accounted for. Kitchen line production, preparation and delivery of product, payment, busing, resetting tables. So directly related to producing sales, represent the greatest impact on your guest experience, apply positive guest experience with your front of house layout, positive employee experience so they can move around your front of house efficiently and effectively between all the stations, and you're creating a positive profitability atmosphere. Determine the exact number of employees it takes to service X number of guests per hour, consistently and efficiently. Ask these type of questions. Involve your team, involve your front of house team, and even your kitchen team. Do we need to add another busser or eliminate them? How many tables or customers should one server be able to handle efficiently? How can we arrange and support systems, supplies, point of sale terminals, and procedures to minimize extra steps and wasted time? How many cooks do we need to serve X number of guests in a given hour? We're going to look at a chart that you can start to track over the next couple of weeks to determine in your peak hours and your non-peak hours exactly what is the ideal number of staff to have on hand. What should our minimum staffing level be? What should our maximum staffing levels be? And for peak periods, cross-training prep, dishwasher personnel to pitch in on the kitchen line and can help speed up service during peak periods. Focused observation, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. On looking at your entire process. So your kitchen is typically in the weeds just about every Friday and Saturday night. Average ticket times goes way up and increases almost sometimes double. Maybe there are too many tables for your kitchen, or it's a fry station that's slowing everything down. And then the fourth area is cleanup. Does it directly affect customer satisfaction? Can you find ways to reduce cleanup activities after closing without hurting your guest satisfaction? So initiate cleanup so that you're not interrupting your guest prior to actual closing and reducing your after hours time. Okay, I'm going to bring this out. So those are the 4 core labor categories: setup, prep, service, and cleanup. Smart assignment, labor assignment is the key. You don't need to slash hours. You need to assign them smarter. Slow down to observe operations objectively. It's called focused observation. Involve yourself and your team, your key team members, to go through this process over the course of a couple weeks and ask the difficult questions. Is this the best use of our people right now? And here's one of the spreadsheets or charts that we have helped our restaurants implement. It's just a simple staffing guidelines chart. And this is a bare bones staff, but you would list out your entire front of house and back of house positions. Across the top, list out the number of guests per hour. And this may not make sense for your restaurant, but it did for this restaurant. The peak is 200 and the low is 10. And in each of these positions, how many staff do you need when there's that number of customers during that particular hour? And you would just drop in the numbers in this chart to help you get closer to understanding what are your staffing levels at peak hours and at non-peak hours. And it's through focused observation, walking around your restaurant, observing each of these. Let me go back here. Well, observing each of these core labor categories and understanding what does it take to get the job done when there's this many customers in the house, and asking the questions that we went over. Okay, focused observation, your secret weapon. We just showed you the chart that you're going to take in with your print out a piece of paper and a clipboard. Watch for operational bottlenecks during service. Track time spent on routine tasks systematically. Question efficiency and necessity of each of the processes. Involve staff in identifying improvement opportunities. So how long should this task take to complete? You can get as detailed as we did with the prep of a batch, or your best guess estimate on simple task. How long should it take? Is this job being done in the most efficient way? Could someone at a lower pay rate handle this effectively? We saw that example with the honey mustard dressing batch. What obstacles are preventing faster completion? So you're striving for perfection, but that's impossible. But in striving for perfection, you're going to achieve better results. And we already showed you the staffing guiding chart. Okay, what are your next key takeaways? The ideal labor equals maximum productivity plus happy guests plus satisfied staff plus a healthy profit margin. So one of your next steps over the next week or two before you watch next week's part 2 on getting into the nitty-gritty of laying all these details out and creating the ideal staffing chart is doing this focus observation. Start to fill out a few of these charts with yourself and your team and understand what are your key staffing levels at different peak hours and non-peak hours, different quantity of guests. So next week, we're going to go into the details, tools and guidance to build your labor model hour by hour, task by task with practical tools and templates. So for action right now, work on your staffing guidelines chart. And if today's cost strategies resonated with you, click the link in the comments below and let's talk about how to get started on improving your profits and your cash flow. Thanks, and we'll see you next week for part 2.